Hello YouTube. Today is another nice day and we're going to be taking another ride in an old classic car. And this time we're going to be taking a 67 Pontiac Grand Prix Convertible.
The 1967 Pontiac Grand Prix Convertible has the rare distinction of being the one and only year that Pontiac ever produced a convertible for the Grand Prix. The Grand Prix was built as a full-size model. The Le Mans GTO was considered mid-size model, and the Firebird, which was introduced in 1967, was their new pony car. All of the large full-size Pontiacs were known as performance models because they were large and they had the power to move. They were very fast luxury cars that were king of the roads in their time. The Grand Prix has a beautiful interior, and it also came with an 8-track player, and it was known as a 4+4, so you could play either 4 tracks or 8-track tapes.
Let's hear a run.
This Grand Prix has a 400 cubic inch motor, which put out 350 horsepower, but it's actually Pontiac's 389 bored over to 400. There was also an option for a 428 cubic inch that pumped out 376 horsepower. That was really a 421 bored over. They were both introduced in '67, but the engine blocks had been used for years, just in their lesser form. The main thing that set the Grand Prix apart from its sister cars, the Catalina and the Bonneville, were the headlights. The Grand Prix had vacuum-powered, hideaway headlights that sat horizontally, and the turn signals were hidden in triple slits just above the headlights in the header panel, whereas the Catalina and the Bonneville had stacked vertical headlights, 2 on each side, one in the bumper and then one just above in the header panel where the Grand Prix's turn signals are. Both the Grand Prix and Catalina had a 121-inch wheelbase, but the Bonneville had a 125-inch wheelbase. It was made a little bit longer. It had a longer hood, shorter trunk, but it could be mistaken for the Catalina because of the stacked headlights. So that made the Grand Prix instantly recognizable, and it distinguished itself from the other full-size Pontiacs in 1967. The Grand Prix has a very large and comfortable interior with a real nice wood grain dash and a large center console. Well, I think it's time to get behind the wheel and take her for a spin. Offering style, comfort, and performance, it's a joy to drive this big car. It rides very smooth and the suspension handles bumps and the road very well. It corners very comfortably too. And this car has drum brakes, which are actually very responsive, but they did offer a disc brake option as well. And speaking of options, there was also an 8-lug wheel option. So the wheels had 8 lugs on there, but the significance of the 8-lug wheels is where that not only did they look mean, but they were actually the brake drum. So the drum brakes were encased inside the wheel. And it's worth noting that in 1967, there was a total of 42,981 Grand Prix that were built, but only 5,857 of those built were made into convertibles, which makes this car pretty rare. The Grand Prix was built in a time when the price of gas really wasn't an issue. There was plenty of it, and it was cheap. So designers and car owners weren't worried about fuel consumption. And the Grand Prix gets an average of about 7.5 miles per gallon. Whenever we gas up the Grand Prix, we have to put in a lead additive to the fuel because today's gas is unleaded. And this old Pontiac, it's not ready for a new age diet. The Grand Prix was originally added to Pontiac's full-size lineup in 1962. And it was redesigned each model year And by 1969, the head of GM's Pontiac division made the decision to change the Grand Prix from the once proud full-size platform to the more popular mid-size platform, where it remained until the Grand Prix line was phased out in 2002. And by the way, that head of GM's Pontiac division was none other than John DeLorean, the brilliant man that helped introduce the world to 60s GM muscle cars such as the GTO and the Firebird, and who after leaving GM started his own company, DeLorean Motor Cars, and he tried to finance it with money made from smuggling cocaine into the United States until he got caught. His car will forever be remembered as the time-traveling stainless steel car from Back to the Future with the flux capacitor. You may notice from this angle that the windshield wipers are behind and beneath the back of the hood. This was another first in 1967 introduced on the Grand Prix, the first use of concealed windshield wipers. Prior to that, the wipers were typically sat on top of a cowl panel in front of the windshield just behind the hood. Also found on the 67 Grand Prix was GM's new energy-absorbing collapsible steering column. It was a two-piece column that crumpled under pressure, and it spared the driver from being impaled by the column in the event of a crash, which had been a problem since the creation of the automobile. So it didn't cushion a blow of impact with a hot pillow like today's cars, but it did increase the driver's chances of survival. Well, we've made it to the end of our ride and the end of our video. I'd like to take a moment to say thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the bit of history that this car has to tell or not tell. Because you know, a big car like this with a big trunk like that could probably hold at least about 10 bodies. But we ain't gonna talk about that today. Instead, we're gonna thank you for watching and ask you to please like and subscribe. Thank you.